To start this off, I just want to get a quick raise of hands if you know of Kobe Bryant and the Black Mamba mentality. Anybody know? Right? One of the most legendary mindsets in all of sports. But what most people don't know is at one point, his mindset was in a downward spiral. At the start of his career, things were rolling. He came out flying, wins 3 consecutive NBA championships. We all have this phase where we feel good about ourselves. Things are rolling, but everybody, including Kobe, gets into their own head. For him, that happened when the challenges in his personal life leaked into his performance on the court. He was losing his killer instinct. For you, it might be as you rise the ranks, the pressures and the expectations are getting louder, creating a mind full of noise. You start to worry, overthink, and second-guess yourself. And for some of you, it might be that the setbacks, adversities, and challenges are piling up. You start to lose your swagger and your confidence. And at its worst, for some of you, getting in your own head means it creates this vicious vortex where every time you try to break free, the weight of it sucks you back in, and you feel like you're stuck in a nightmare and can never escape. But the good news is, you don't have to stay stuck in your own head. You can clear the noise and level up your swagger and your confidence. This is what Kobe did. He started to work with my mentor, Todd Herman, and together they intentionally created the Black Mamba, which is clearly a better mindset than the one he had at the start of his career. And so, to be clear, you can do this too. You can transform your mindset just like Kobe. I get to do this every day with professional athletes and high performers like surgeons, investors, and CEOs, helping them level up their mindset so that they can be at their best day in and day out. Now, not everybody is deep in the vortex of their own head. There's probably some of you that have just a little bit of noise, or some where you're slipping in and out of your own head. Sometimes things are great and you're rolling, then the tension builds up, you start to lose that confidence a little bit, and you're not performing consistently at your capabilities. So whether you've got a little bit of noise or a lot, the principles and the strategies that I'm going to share with you today can have a massive impact on both your career as an athlete, but also in your life if you apply them. And think of it this way. If you're at all interested in leveling up your mindset, get that pen and paper ready, because I'm going to coach you just like I coach professional athletes to perform when it matters most. So, the first step that I take with every athlete is to break free from the weight of results. But what does that mean? What does it mean to break free? Well, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean first. Here's the common things that you might have experienced, and there's a lot of cliches out there. The first of which is you go to a coach or you go to somebody and you feel like you're doubting yourself a lot. Very common. I'm struggling with confidence. I'm not believing in myself. And the advice that often gets given is, just be confident. It's ridiculous. Here's another one. What about you're overthinking a lot? You're like second guessing, hesitating. You're like really in my own head, feeling the tension. And advice might be, well, don't worry about it. Stop thinking so much. Oh yeah, that's very helpful. Okay, and at its worst is when things are getting really hard and you're feeling really deflated. And the advice is, not Xavier's advice, but this advice, which is just be positive about it, right? We want to have a positive attitude, but how? If I gave that kind of advice, I'd be out of a job pretty quick. Instead, this fluffy and cookie-cutter advice, it often can make things worse. What you want to do is challenge the status quo and think differently about success and failure. And specifically, you want to flip your approach. To explain this, I'll use Dr. John Demartini's be, do, have model, which looks like this. Be, do, and have. Pretty simple. But what happens, and what most of us do in life, is we default to, well, what do I want to have? What do I want to achieve? What is the external goal that I want to, as a result? Is it the fame? Is it getting to the next level? Is it the external validation? That's the priority. And then you focus on, okay, well, what do I got to do in order to get that? And the last thing we focus on is then who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? So I can get in the right mindset to take the actions to achieve the results. This is what I call results first. But it's completely backwards. It makes way more sense to start here with who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? This is your mindset, and it's connected to the love of the game and your intrinsic drivers. And when you get clarity and certainty with how you want to show up, then the actions flow, and you're more likely to achieve the results. This is what I call being mindset first. It's a flip in priorities from results first to mindset first. And it's a flip in approaches from outside in, where the external world and the results dictate how you feel and your inner world, to an inside out approach, where you take control of your mindset and become intentional about how you show up, and then you go and tackle the outer world. And when you get into your own head, that results first and outside in, that's why you get in your own head. And when we are mindset first and inside out, that's how we get into the zone. Now, there's a big trap, though, that prevents so many people from breaking free and truly being mindset first. And I'll use an example of one of my current clients, not the Boston guy, it's a different guy. And it's, he was coming to me because he's in a big scoring slump, an NHL player. And he hasn't scored in a long time. And so we start doing the work. He's like, I really want to score, I need to score. He's deep in the vortex. And as we start to flip his priorities and he starts to focus on who he wants to be, he's starting to play better. But he's falling into this trap. And the trap is this. He's like, I want to be mindset first and focus on this so that I can break the scoring slump and get the result. Okay? He's resisting the results of his current situation. And yes, being mindset first will help you get results. But you can't do it for the result. Right? Just think of it. I want to be mindset first and have an inside-out approach so that I can get the result. You're still being results first. That's not mindset first. And so the key to breaking free from the weight of results is to stop holding on to them, to detach. But how do we do that? Well, I'll give you the example of what I said to him. I'm like, okay, the goal, the external goal, is to score. And hopefully you score in the next game, but there's no guarantee. And if you can't accept the range of results, maybe you shouldn't play hockey. Maybe it's not for you, and you should quit. I don't want him to quit, just to be clear. And I don't want anyone to quit. But I use this line a lot because the reality is it is a choice. You choose to play. And when you choose to play, it gives them the perspective and gives every athlete the perspective so that they can detach, accept it, and let go and break free. And we see this happen all the time. It's very effective. Athletes start to perform better. So not surprisingly, what happened to him? Once he finally was like, oh, yeah, I detach and let go. Scores 3 goals in his next 6 games. Okay, it works really well. And what we're doing in order to stay mindset first is leaning on 4 principles of acceptance, commitment, centeredness, and enjoyment. Now, when I say acceptance, a lot of people are like, misunderstand that. They're like, oh, acceptance is like, don't care about anything and become a hippie. Or it's like, no, I don't want you to think of acceptance like that. Instead, I use it as a superpower because it allows you to detach so that you can commit to the task at hand and be in the moment. And so think of it this way. When you are trying to use acceptance, most of us think the opposite. We're like, oh, society's like, but I have to achieve things. I can't use acceptance, right? I got to get all these results. I should be getting this. Very common language. As well as coaches will say things like, this is a must-win game, or this one's so important. I mean, the other games were optional. Like, the goal and the intent is always to win and to perform well. So acceptance actually helps optimize the probability of doing that because you can commit and be in the moment. And so this 1-2 punch of acceptance is great for getting you centered and having that positive attitude. But the problem is, a lot of times people misunderstand what I mean by centeredness. They're like, oh, they're thinking about positivity. Not in the way that you heard earlier tonight, but in the way of like just super fluffy, okay? And what I mean by that is I'll talk to somebody for a long time, Like this idea is really spread like wildfire. I'll go 10 minutes one-on-one with somebody, explain, all right, we gotta be acceptance, have a better attitude, use mindset first. I'm like, explicitly say, don't just say be positive. Don't make that your only takeaway. And I'm like, okay, what'd you learn? I'm like, so be more positive? I'm like, no, don't just be more positive. There's more to it than that. There's more nuance. That's an oversimplification. What I want you to think about when I say centeredness is about staying even keel. Okay? Riding the waves and up and down, seeing the situation for what it is. When you use it, you feel light and grounded at the same time. It's much more sustainable. And so these first three principles help you tap into the fourth one, which you heard a lot about already tonight, enjoyment. Now I'm going to share a bit more about that near the end. For now, I want to take a beat. And I want this to be as interactive so you get some tangible takeaways and get that pen and paper out. I want you to think about what are the things you're holding on to the most? What are your mental blocks or fears or worries or things that get you in your own head? And by writing it down, it's like shining a light on it so we can get perspective. Because we all get in our own head. And it could be small or it could be big. And so just take 30 seconds, and when we're done in 30 seconds, I'll raise my hand and everybody else can raise your hand. We know to stop writing. But just pick something. It could be worrying about what other people think. There might be a certain time or result that you're really trying to achieve, and there's a lot of tension around. It could be unhealthy comparison is very common. So just pick one, and I'll give you about 30 seconds. I'll raise my hand when time's up. And now I just want you to share with someone beside you to help normalize it. Because we all have things going on in our head, and to help us better address it and see it, do your best to share with someone beside you and give about 30 seconds each. And again, when I raise my hand at the end, everyone raise your hands. That's when it's time to stop. Go ahead. All right, so again, the point of that is as you start to shine a light on the things that might be weighing on your mind, you can start to get a better perspective around it so that you can accept it and detach. Now, all of this so far has been very theoretical in a sense. It's a concept. It's a way of thinking differently. So how do we make it more tangible? Well, we've got strategies. And I want to dive into one of our top strategies that athletes really like to use, one of the most impactful. We call it a reset routine. So there's a lot of swimmers in the crowd. This would be like your pre-race routine. And it's a part of the routine that helps you get mentally locked in and clear any noise. You can also be doing it on practice days, staying highly motivated and consistent that way and dealing with the pain of training. And the way that the reset routine works is there's three parts. And first one's acceptance, which is the most important part. Because when you're thinking about clearing the noise or any weight going on in the back of your head, acceptance is the key. You don't do anything for acceptance. So what I want you to be thinking about is something to associate with it. So simply, it could be spraying water in the air. I know swimmers that have, before the race, they'll come and grab the water and get their suit wet. That's part of their game day, race day routines. And so having something that you associate with it now makes it part of your habits and your routines that get you locked in and clear the noise. The second big part, though, is breathing. And sometimes people will pair acceptance with breathing. This is often deep belly breathing. 1, 2, 3 deep breaths. The whole routine is only going to take about 10 to 15 seconds. Another common breathing example would be box breathing, if you've ever heard of it. It's like 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold. And so whatever it is, pick something, and now it's part of your routine. And the last piece is then going to be commitment. So this is where you okay, I've cleared the noise, I've got centered using breathing. How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? Not just what do I want to do, but how do I want to feel while I do it? We encourage you to close your eyes. You would not be doing this during the race or during the performance. You're doing it before or during an intermission or breaks in between. And it's a way to get recalibrated. So I'll just give 10 seconds, maybe 20. If you haven't written it down, write something down now. So you've got a first draft. You can always change it anytime. But pick something to associate with A, the B's, and the C's. Because this is a very tangible thing. I'll teach to somebody, and they're using it 5, 10 years later still. So take your time and just write down a quick reset routine. So that covers step 1. And when we get an athlete to truly do that, break free, they're using the reset routine, they often get some way better results. But step 2 is now, how do we lock in and create that new mindset and identity, just like Kobe did? Well, there's a big mistake when we're trying to level up our mindset And I'll use another example, this time of a pro golfer that I work with. And at the start of his career, he came out of college flying. He's playing great, he's winning all the time, and he starts to do really well on the PGA, gets endorsement deals. And so he's feeling great about himself. But now that he's at this new level, new pressures, expectations, facing some adversity, all of a sudden, he's starting to really get in his own head. He's getting really worried about what other people think. He's starting to overthink, doubt himself, losing his confidence. Get really hard on himself. So as we start working together, and I'm like, okay, well, we got to come up with a new mindset. He's like, well, I wish I could just play like I did a few years ago or back then. I was like, you can't go back. I was like, you need to go forward. You're in a new situation. We got to keep evolving and growing. And then he's like, okay. And then as we're starting to work on that and clarify that, he goes, yeah, I'd like to be like that, but I am somebody, keywords I am, someone that always worries about what everyone thinks. I am somebody that really beats myself up all the time. I'm like, whoa, let's stop right here. As long as you're identifying with this, I am this, the mental blocks, the limiting beliefs, it's going to be hard to move forward. All right? I was like, we need to create this line in the sand. This might be how you've shown up, but it's not who you are. You get to choose your mindset and identity and how you approach sport and life. And the way that then I was looking at that with him, I was like, let's change the language. You used to be somebody that worried about what other people think. You've had a tendency to beat yourself up in the past. But make that line clear and shift to start looking and operating. You still could slip back, but don't identify with it, because that's a trap that you'll keep sucking you back in. And so as he started to do this, not surprisingly, started to play a lot better golf. But what's interesting and what we're talking about here is very theoretical. This is like philosophical. Who am I? Who are you? Okay? But what I want to challenge you to think about is we're more than just the things that we do, the way that we show up, the results, the thoughts, and the feelings. I want you to think about yourself more than just a character in a story, but that you're the author of your own story. And this is really important because as the author, you have both awareness and choice about how you approach each day. As the author, when we look at the past, what does that mean? Well, you can't change the facts. Maybe you didn't do something as well, or maybe you had some success or things and you faced some adversity. There's certain facts, but how you narrate them matters. If you're like, oh, it's not going so well, things are going against me, that's how you're narrating it. Or, hey, how am I growing, moving forward, and building off this? Those are very different, and they matter. And then how you see yourself as the character. Do you see yourself as a victim? Nothing ever goes my way. Okay? Or see yourself as the hero of your own story. You're writing it. You might as well see yourself as the hero. Now, most importantly, though, is what about the future, the next page? It's always a blank page. And how are you going to write it? How are you going to write that next page? This is what step 2 is all about. Creating your new mindset and identity and evolving it, adding things to it, refining it. So how do we do that? Well, good news is, got a really cool strategy. It's called the alter ego strategy. And so this is, again, the Black Mamba idea. My mentor, he wrote the book, The Alter Ego Effect. Very cool and good book. And the idea of this strategy, if you're like, alter ego, that sounds really weird. I thought so too. I was like, alter, like what do you mean? Multiple egos, isn't that a bad thing? Don't worry about the name. Think of it as a strategy that contrasts. Get clarity on who you don't want to be and how you don't want to show up and move away from, and get really good clarity on how you do want to show up. And this contrast becomes really important so you can step into this. Because how you show up when you're on the ice or the court or swimming or your sport or in life isn't the same traits in all the other areas. And so having clarity here goes a long way. So I'm going to share a bunch of examples of it, and then we're going to actually interact a little bit and get you to start working on it. But the premise is there's 3 main steps. There's a lot of deeper ones, but for today, there's 3 main ones that I want to review. The first one is identifying moments of impact. So in your sport or your area you want to work on is what are the key moments where your mindset really matters? I know, again, there's a lot of swimmers. I call this often a race plan. What are the different moments in the race, and how do you want to feel in those moments? Because it can be different. And once you start identifying that, step 2 is to create that contrast now. Not just what you want to do, but how you want to feel. How you don't want to feel, and how you do want to feel. And what are those traits? And then the last part is where the real magic starts to happen. It's to create a story, a narrative. You can lean on superheroes, family members, characters in a show, something that inspires you, animals. And so the idea, though, when you do this, and the point of having a story, is because stories evoke the feeling way more powerfully than just, well, I'm going to go attack. No, I want a story that evokes that feeling and that you can step into. Let me give you 3 examples and important things related to this. And then we'll interact and get you to actually start working on it. The first of which is about confidence. Everybody wants confidence. Quick raise of hand if you'd like to never have a confidence problem again. Okay? Most people. We all like that. Here's how. There's 2 parts. First, stop using the word confidence. The word's tainted. And second, definitely don't say, I have a confidence problem. Okay? It's a self-perpetuating trap. The second part, I have a confidence problem. What happens when you say that? I'm struggling with confidence. You're identifying with it. And as long as you believe you're someone that struggles with confidence, you've now got a self-perpetuating problem again. It's an identity piece. Okay. And the second reason, though, and then we'll tie these 2 together, is the word itself is tainted. When we think confidence and the way it gets talked about in our society, confidence is tied to the external things. I got that time, or getting lots of praise and external validation. I feel confident. You don't get it, you lose it. Up, down. It's so dependent on external things. That's not what true confidence is. It's a flawed definition. And so instead, true confidence is about owning your capabilities based on the work that you've put in. And so now as we change that narrative, instead of, oh, I'm someone with a confidence problem, he's like, no, I'm currently not owning my capabilities. That's a lot easier to work on. And so stop using the word. The athletes we work with, we try to get them to not use it at all. Or at least when they do use it, they understand, oh, it's about owning my capabilities. I'm confident in my capabilities. So that's a big one. And so as you're creating your contrast, your narrative, am I somebody that owns my capabilities? Or am I somebody that doubts myself and worries about external things and lose confidence and it goes up and down? Let me give you a really good example that's related to that about worrying about mistakes. Okay. Who ever worries about mistakes? Anybody? Worry about not going well? Very common. Okay, also related. Here's my favorite narrative to help limit that. And it's about swords and shields. So think of an athlete that's very afraid, okay, to make a mistake. Like a hockey player or a swimmer that comes out very tentative. Okay? The idea is they've got 2 shields. Sometimes we're so afraid, we're like, oh, I don't want to screw up. Like you're not attacking at all. Hopefully you don't get there too often, but I've seen it. And often then what happens is, okay, no, I trust myself. I want to go and attack, but I'm still a little bit afraid to screw up. So I'm kind of hiding behind the shield. And what I like to say to athletes is, okay, you're kind of attacking and kind of trusting yourself. You're not too worried, but a little bit worried. But if you're actually good with the sword or good at your sport, you've put in the work and have the capabilities, drop the other shield, grab a second sword, and attack. Not recklessly like an idiot, okay? Attack with confidence and swagger and own your capabilities. And it's very helpful. It's like, oh, am I holding the shield? Why am I holding the shield? Like, I know what I'm doing. Drop it, grab the sword. So that's a story, and it creates a feeling versus, oh, go and attack. No, go and have a 2 swords mindset and attack. That creates a feeling. So very helpful. Get a lot of athletes, get a lot out of that one. One more example is overthinking. Anybody overthink? Yeah, pretty common. Think about it. Now you're overthinking about it. Okay. Here's the cure to overthinking. 2-part solution on this one. Part 1, okay, think more before. Why do I say that? Most people that are overthinking didn't think enough before, so then what happens when you get in the moment? All the pressure's there, and you're trying to think about, well, what should I be thinking about? Because you haven't mentally prepared enough. So if we think more before the race, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? You're mentally rehearsing. You've got a lot of clarity. Now you just go, let it happen. So that's one of the big benefits to mental prep. But there's a second, deeper part to overthinking and the solution. And that is the idea of trying to force things and be perfect. A lot of times people that overthink, they're trying to be perfect and control the outcome. Just imagine like I grab a little piece of paper here and I want to shoot it into the basket over there. Pretty easy. Swish, right? But now what if all of a sudden that's like $1 million shot? It's not too far away. It's just right there. But I'm like, okay, I got to perfectly control my arm. What exactly am I going to do? Like, I'm hesitant. I'm rigid because I'm trying to force and control. That is overthinking. So the solution, instead of trying to force and control and be perfect, trust yourself. Let it happen. Focus on the feel and be intentional. Detach from the result and then let it happen. Keywords, write this one down. Let it happen. Not force and control. Very big part to curing overthinking. All right, with that said now, I want to give you an opportunity to start thinking about your mindset and creating that new level or alter ego. So I'll go back to this slide and think of a moment of impact. Often athletes will have 3 to 5. The swimmers, often this can be your race plan. Before the race, start of the race, the turn, middle of the race. You're like, call it like no man or no woman zone, where it's like the dog middle, the finish at the end. Okay, you can pick a bunch of those moments of impact. And, but pick 1 or 2 now, because we probably won't have time to do all 5. But pick 1 or 2 that really matter to you. Then start thinking about the contrast, and then start thinking about the story. And I'll plant the seed now. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to 2 minutes to work on your own. And then I'm going to pick somebody, or they're going to volunteer, actually, to be courageous and share. Because when you're going to get an opportunity to, 1, get feedback on it and start to get the idea and see it click, but also everybody else can learn and see it in action. So hopefully somebody really wants to be lucky and get a little bit of coaching one-on-one. Otherwise, we'll pick our Olympian hopefuls down at the front. Okay? All right, so we've got 1 to 2 minutes. Start doing it, and then I'll raise my hand and we'll get someone to volunteer for a little coaching. All right. We could spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to get one person at least to interact. So again, you don't need to have all of it, but you'd like to get to work through it a bit, and especially the third part, and think of a story or narrative a little bit. And so if you're super courageous, and you also want to be super lucky and get a little interaction and personalize it a bit for yourself, just raise your hand. All you got to do is have 1 moment of impact, know something you want to work on. Awesome. What's your name? Avery. Yeah. Thanks for coming up. So what was the moment of impact?
Right before my race.
Okay, right before the race. So similar, but a little bit different. And what was not and do?
I'm not distracted by in my head.
Okay.
And I'm not spiraling.
Okay.
And I'm not negative.
Okay. Negative, spiraling, really in their own head, overthinking probably a bit. Yeah. And how do you want to feel?
I want to feel calm.
Yeah.
And I want to be distracted. Those who know me, I dance before my races.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm ready to go.
Okay, nice. And did you have anything of inspiration that you thought of a story for that?
Gremlin.
A gremlin? Okay, so you don't want to be the gremlin?
I want to be the gremlin.
Oh, you want to be a gremlin. Oh, okay. Like the gremlin's like ready to go and like, yeah, okay, yeah, nice. I get it. And what's helpful too is you can create a story of the thing you don't want too. I thought that's what she did. I was wrong. So she did this one. But you can also be like, I want to be the gremlin and I don't want to be like, this person that's up here. I want to be gremlin down. I'm ready to dive in. So I'll give 2 other unique ones. I don't know if you ever thought of it, but you could easily be a shark is always a cool one. Think of like swimmers, a lot of swimmers here. Shark, dive in, versus like I'm just a duck in the water. Would be a cool, funny contrast to some of the swimmers I've done. But the other one that might apply for her and a lot is a Batman narrative I like. So anybody, you like Batman by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, right? Yeah. Okay, so she doesn't have to use this, but if you like Batman or the idea of it, it works really well. Because especially think about the pre-race jitters and I'm really worried, don't want to screw up. Well, the way the Batman narrative works is he was really afraid of what? Bats. Right? So what did he do? He became one with the bats. As a swimmer, the thing you don't like is not performing well. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and it's not going to go perfectly. If you can't accept that, don't be a swimmer. It's a learning process. Be one with the bats, the thing you're afraid of. And then it's like, let me just go swim. And if I make a mistake, I'll learn from it. And so it's a very helpful, it's like, this is my moment to stand with the bats before. You're about to come out of the bat cave and race, so to speak. So and you're like, all right, I'm the gremlin. I'm standing with the bats, all right? Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea. Again, you get to be very playful with that, creative. It taps into your imagination and story, okay? But the idea of just having that contrast goes a long way. So we've covered the first 2 steps. 1, break free, accept, detach, be mindset first. And then 2, start to create that new identity, the mindset that you want. When we get an athlete to do those 2 steps, they're playing way better. They're performing better. They're more in the moment. But there's a 3rd step, and it's about locking it in. And why does this matter? Well, it's the allure of results. And my favorite story and example of that is of the flower bed story, which is about a 105-year-old lady. Okay, it's a made-up story. And she's the matriarch of her community. And what she has in her backyard is 2 beautiful flower beds. Okay, gorgeous. And these 12-year-old kids like to come and play in her backyard. And they play football. They'll throw the football, jump, catch it in the nice soft flower bed. They love playing. The old lady doesn't like it. It's ruining her flowers. She's like, you kids, get out of here. And they're like, screw you, lady. They keep coming back. They love playing. And so she's like, should I call the cops? Nah, they're just 12. Can't do that. So she's thinking, she's like, all right, I got to come up with this clever, sneaky idea. And then it dawns on her. And so she decides to start to pay them to play. They all get $5 every week to come and play. The kids are like, this is sick. Not only get to play this game we love, we're getting paid to do it. And that goes on for a while, week after week. And then she starts to pay them less. $2, $1, 50 cents, a quarter. Kids are like, screw this. We're not playing anymore. You're not paying us enough. They lost sight with why they were playing the game in the first place. Now, for you, it might not be the money. Pro athletes, it can be. But there's all kinds of results and allures that suck us in. And we forget the why in the enjoyment, in the journey, in the process. It could be rising the ranks, the external validation, how you rank, all these external things that we chase. And so when we're thinking about locking in your mindset and your mental game and locking in that enjoyment, which is one of those 4 principles, you have to have strategies to do so. And we've covered 2 already. The reset routine helps you accept, let go, and commit, get back to the enjoyment. The alter ego, getting clarity. Who's somebody that loves it and enjoys it, and who's somebody that gets sucked in and gets negative and down into that trap. Now there's 2 more that I want to cover. One is called the scorecard. Because when we think of the external results as it's going to suck you into it, well, the personal scorecard is what you do after, right? It's something where it's like, I want to have my own definition of success. Not society's definition, but my own, based on my process and what it means for me to play my sport and show up and enjoy it. And so you start to create this own definition, and it keeps reinforcing the mindset first approach. It keeps reinforcing an inside-out approach versus falling into the allure of results. So what does a personal scorecard look like? Well, here's the 5 questions, or not 5, there's usually about 5, 3 basic ones. The first one is, what did I do well? And this really matters for most high-achieving athletes and people in general, because what do we usually do at the end of a day? All right, this went well, but I got to be better at this. This went well, but I got to work on this. You're always focusing on how to get better, which is helpful, but if that's all you do and you downplay your success, what happens to your mindset? It becomes negatively skewed, and you're not owning your capabilities. So I'm not saying get positively skewed and be inflated. Do both, but make sure you own them because most people aren't. So that's a simple first question. The second one is then, were you mindset first today? What was your priority? Were you focused on all the external stuff and that was the priority? Or were you being mindset first and focusing on the inside-out approach? That simple question keeps you accountable to staying mindset first so you don't get sucked in. And then the third questions, or more, often there's more than 3, is like, did I have 2 swords attack? Was I the gremlin? Okay? Was I pre-race the day before? Was I the rock star, just relaxed and doing it? It keeps you accountable to those things that are personalized to you. And so again, the point of the scorecard is what you're doing after. It helps you keep learning, self-reflecting, so you become more self-aware and can keep self-correcting. Very powerful, really important to do. You can have a notebook, you do that. Our athletes will often use a Google Sheet, and so forth. So now that I've covered what to do after, I have not yet actually covered too much about what to do before. And I love to talk about a surgeon when we talk about pressure and performance. And I do this because think about life or death situations when you're dealing with heart surgeries. That's what they're dealing with. That's a lot of pressure. And so one of these surgeons I was working with came in and he's talking about, he's feeling a bit of the nerves. He's doing great. He's a great surgeon. But he's like, I want to work on his mindset a bit. And so I'm like, all right, well, we got to detach and flip the priorities. And as we start doing that and I go to the acceptance piece, I'm like, ooh, this is a little bit different. I was like, this is not detaching from winning and losing or making a mistake. So I'm like, okay, let me be clear. I do not want you to be indifferent to the life or death of your patients. Okay? I don't want that. But the reality is, okay, there's a burden being a surgeon. And if you can't accept the range of results, then maybe you shouldn't be a surgeon. You can't accept the burden. He's like, no one ever said it to me that way before. I was like, that makes sense. It's like, again, still have the goal and the result, but not having it weigh on him. His heart rate started to lower during surgeries. He's even more calm and composed. Again, he's detaching. What we're doing when we're having that kind of a conversation, it's called coping planning. Planning to cope with the pressure. Planning to cope with adversity. Planning to cope with distractions and challenges. And by doing that, and we call it also pre-acceptance, he pre-accepted it before the surgery, now he can stay more composed during. This is mental prep 101. And it's the last strategy, and there's two parts to it. One I just alluded to, coping plan, which I think is the most important. When we think mental rehearsal and how we visualize and rehearse before, a lot of people just think results. It's not about results. You can visualize a positive result, but visualize the process. Both the coping plan, the day before, right before the race, in between races, or the different moments, and how you're going to respond to that psychologically, the mental state. And then two, the other big part to mental prep is action planning. Okay, actually doing the race, actually performing your sport. And what is it that you want to do, but more importantly, how you want to feel while you do it. And again, that goes back to reinforcing the contrast and rehearsing that. So then when you get there, you're just on autopilot and you attack. So now, as you can see, these create a really good cycle. They're the four fundamentals. We want to use the alter ego to get clarity, the reset routine for acceptance commitment, then afterwards you're doing the personal scorecard, and the before is setting the intention. So you prepare, get present, play, perform, race, reflect, learn, and grow. Prepare, play, reflect. It creates an upward spiral, and not just your mindset, but actually your performance and your sport. It's a great developmental model. And this is what my team uses and I use with our athletes to get them in the zone so they can achieve consistently performance. Now, I want to take you back. I haven't talked to you much about myself in my career. I'm definitely not a swimmer, for all the swimmers out there. I can tread water, but I can't compete. Okay? But what I was a hockey player. And I'm from North Bay, Ontario, and I want to take you back to my 17-year-old draft season. And I'm in the OHL, and it's my dream to play in the NHL. And I get that opportunity that year. I'm like, I could see it. I want to get drafted. So I do what a lot of high performers do. I go to my whiteboard, I get a marker, I'm like, write down my goals. 1, put up a ton of points, and 2, get drafted to the NHL. But I don't stop there. I keep going. I write down all of my goals and create all of the milestones to achieving my dream. Well, how's that season go? Well, it starts off not bad. I come out flying, first couple steps, feeling great about myself. Then, bam, I fell off the yellow brick road pretty quick. You see, I went from being on the starting lineup in the home opener to barely playing. Just imagine, I'm at 17, and all I want to do is be out on the ice, chasing down my dream. But instead, I'm getting healthy scratched, which means I'm not even on the bench. I'm in the stands, watching everyone else chase their dream while I'm eating popcorn, okay? In the stands. It's kind of funny, okay? In some ways. But I did that 48 times that year. Having watched everyone else. That's a lot of popcorn, just to be clear. Okay? Now the worst part, or there's two bad parts. One part is, as a forward, guess what I ended up with? 0 points. And in case it's not clear, you don't get drafted to the NHL with 0 points. So the worst part wasn't just failing at my goals or eating all the stale popcorn. The worst part was actually I went back to my hometown after the season, right? North Bay, Ontario, smaller town. And I'm the only guy playing the OHL at that part. So I'm not a big deal, but I'm kind of a big deal in a small town. But someone had the nerve to come up to me. And they're like, hey, if I played 34 games in the OHL, I would have put up at least 1 point. I'm like, are you kidding me? You think I didn't try to put up a point? I'm gut-wrenched. I truly considered quitting right then and there. But I didn't want to let this failure, which was really embarrassing, to define me. I decided I was going to stop the pity party, and I decided to move forward. I didn't want to let the failure take away my love of the game. And I'm sure glad I did decide to move forward, because I went to play 8 more years of competitive hockey, got to play a little bit of pro hockey, had a cup of coffee, and made great friends and memories along the way. And I still go play on the outdoor rink today, enjoying the game, beating some of my friends. Now, I tell that story for 2 reasons, though. The first of which is in every failure, there is always a silver lining. And for me, all of that failure and all the pain that I experienced there gave me perspective. And it made all the other challenges that I've faced in my life since then a lot easier to overcome. Because failure is not inherently a bad thing. Rather, when we embrace the challenges and the setbacks and the adversities, they can serve as a powerful source of grit. The second lesson, though, from that year took me a lot longer to figure out. You see, I went to university for 12 years. I have read hundreds of books on the mental game and learned directly from some of the top performance experts like Todd Herman and John DeMartini. I've spent like 20 years, like a mad scientist, trying to crack the code. There's got to be a different way for athletes to mentally prepare. And after all that time, I realized what happened in my 17-year-old draft season. You see, I was falling for the allure of results. I was so obsessed with the external result, I overlooked who I wanted to be. And what's worse, I lost touch with why I love the game in the first place. I was results first. And so you have this choice. This is the model we like to show. You have this choice. On one side, you can step into the realm of the super elite, and on the other side, you can fall for the allure of results. The common route is to be results first, where you have the weight of results, the emotional roller coaster of results, and the stress and the frustration of results. This is why the pro athletes that I work with, and athletes just like you, get into your own head, and therefore not performing at your capabilities. But there is another way. And the first step is to break free by being mindset first and detach from the results. And then step 2, you got to put in the work. You got to train your mind, create your new mindset and identity. And then the work never ends. You're constantly evolving, clarifying, and locking in your mental game. That's the third step. This is the system that me and my team use, and it's how you get in the zone in this realm of the super elite. So I've got a challenge for you. It's a pretty big challenge. It's, will you be like most people and fall for the allure of results, get stuck in your own head and be average at best? Or will you make the choice to have an inside-out approach, be mindset first, do the work, and achieve consistent elite performance? But most importantly, if you make this choice, I promise you this, you're going to have a heck of a lot more fun along the way. That's it. Thank you.